There is a mineral that the modern world cannot live without. It is not lithium, not cobalt, not nickel, not copper. It is graphite. Every lithium ion battery ever made, every electric vehicle, every smartphone, every laptop, every grid scale energy storage system contains graphite. 25 to 50 kilograms per EV battery, 10 times more than lithium. And for decades, the Western world has been completely, structurally, strategically dependent on China for this mineral. China controls 65% of global graphite mining, 100% of global spherical graphite production, the refined form used in batteries, 95% of global anode material manufacturing, 100%. There is no Western supply chain for battery-grade graphite. Not in the United States, not in Europe, not in Australia. There is only China. Until now. In a small village on the edge of Quebec's vast forests, Saint-Michel-des-Saints, population approximately 2,500. A Canadian mining company called Nouveau Monde Graphite has spent the last decade quietly, methodically, expensively building something that does not yet exist anywhere else in the Western Hemisphere: a complete integrated domestic graphite value chain. From mine to battery. 106,000 tons of graphite concentrate per year. 25-year mine life. $1.8 billion in economic impact. 450 construction jobs. 150 permanent operating positions. And a processing plant in Bécancour, Quebec, that will take that raw graphite and refine it into the high-purity spherical graphite that battery manufacturers actually need. Powered by Quebec's hydroelectricity, certified as the lowest carbon graphite on Earth, supported by the Canadian federal government's Major Projects Office, created specifically to accelerate exactly this kind of strategic resource development. And that is not all. 1,800 kilometers north on the Melville Peninsula in Nunavut, a 200-kilometer by 100-kilometer belt of sedimentary rock that geologists are now calling the Melville Critical Metals Belt. Stratic X has discovered something that may be even larger: massive high-grade graphite mineralization. Drill intervals returning 22% graphitic carbon, peak grades of 34.9%. Large flake crystalline aggregates, the kind that commands premium prices in industrial markets. A 6,000-meter mineralized corridor, a 200-kilometer by 100-kilometer district-scale potential. Nickel, copper, vanadium, silver, cobalt. All of it in Canada. Today, we're not talking about fighter jets or aluminum tariffs or potash exports. We're talking about the single most critical mineral you have never heard of. The mineral that makes batteries actually work. The mineral that China currently monopolizes and that Canada is now preparing to supply to the entire Western world. This is the story of the black gold. And it may be the story of how Canada quietly, patiently, strategically built the only credible alternative to Chinese graphite dominance, just in time. Let's start with a basic fact that almost no one outside the battery industry understands. Graphite is not optional. You cannot make a lithium-ion battery without it. The anode, the negative electrode, is almost always graphite, not lithium, not silicon, not some exotic nanomaterial. Graphite. For years, this didn't seem like a problem. Graphite is abundant. China has lots of it. They sell it at competitive prices. Why build your own supply chain when you can just buy from the market leader? Then COVID happened. Then the trade wars happened. Then Russia invaded Ukraine, and the world suddenly realized that supply chain concentration is a vulnerability. Europe discovered it when Russian natural gas stopped flowing. The United States discovered it when Chinese rare earth exports were threatened. And the battery industry discovered it when it looked at the graphite map and realized There is no plan B. Every single stage of the graphite value chain, mining, purification, spheronization, coating, anode manufacturing, is dominated by Chinese companies. The United States has one active graphite mine. It produces approximately 0.1% of global supply. Europe has zero. Australia has some, but no downstream processing capacity. The entire Western world imports nearly 100% of its battery-grade graphite from China. This is not a dependency. This is a monopoly. And monopolies in geopolitics, as in economics, eventually extract rent. Enter Nouveau Monde Graphite. The company's name is not accidental. Nouveau Monde? New World. It is a mission statement encoded in corporate identity. We are building a new world supply chain. The Matawinie mine, located 120 kilometers north of Montreal, is not a speculative exploration project. It is shovel-ready. Construction begins Q1 2026. Production begins mid-2028. 106,000 tons of graphite concentrate per year. 25 years of reserve life. $1.8 billion in Canadian GDP contribution. 450 workers at peak construction. 150 permanent operating jobs. But here is what makes Matawinie different from every other graphite project in the Western world. The Bécancour Battery Materials Plant. Located in Quebec's industrial heartland, powered by Hydro-Quebec's 99.9% renewable electricity, Bécancour will take the raw graphite concentrate from Matawinie and transform it into spherical graphite, the purified, shaped, coated material that actually goes into battery anodes. This is the step that China currently monopolizes. 100% of global production, until Bécancour. And here is the detail that should terrify every Chinese strategic planner who understands what this means. The Bécancour plant is not a pilot project. It is not a demonstration facility. It is not a research initiative. It is commercial scale production. Designed, engineered, financed, and permitted. And it is powered by the cleanest electricity on Earth. Eric Desaulniers, founder and CEO of Nouveau Monde Graphite, has been working toward this moment for over a decade. His background is not mining, it is engineering and finance. He understands that the bottleneck in the graphite value chain is not extraction, it is processing. And he has spent 10 years systematically, methodically, expensively solving the processing problem. Now he has. Just when the graphite story seemed centered entirely on Quebec, a new front opened, the Melville Peninsula, Nunavut, 200 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle, remote, expensive, logistically challenging, and potentially enormous. Stratic X, a junior exploration company, has been drilling the Nagvac property since 2024. The results are extraordinary. Drill hole NAG 96 Siturio A17, reassayed in 2025, 32 meters of 15% graphitic carbon, including a 17-meter section grading 22%, individual samples exceeding 34.9% graphitic carbon. Large flake crystalline aggregates, the high-quality morphology that commands premium prices in industrial markets. Then drill hole NAG 25 ZA1, completed September 2025, 42.8 meters of mineralized graphite zones. Intersected mineralization, 580 meters west of historical drilling, confirming lateral continuity across a 6,000-meter mineralized corridor. And not just graphite, nickel, copper, vanadium, silver, cobalt. A polymetallic system of the kind that transforms regional economies. The Melville Critical Metals Belt is now understood to span 200 kilometers by 100 kilometers. Multiple geophysical anomalies, district-scale potential. In the same sedimentary belt that hosts the known mineralization, this is not a mine. This is a mineral province, and it is located in Nunavut, Canadian Arctic Territory, Inuit-owned lands, with a territorial government that is actively seeking responsible resource development partnerships. Stratic X has already established a base camp. It has partnered with an Inuit-owned company to manage camp operations and provide logistical support. It has raised $4.5 million in summer financing to advance exploration. This is not a speculative promotion. This is systematic exploration of a world-class mineral belt, and it is happening right now. Here is where the Canadian government enters the story. In August 2025, the Major Projects Office was launched. Its mandate: accelerate the development of strategically significant resource projects. Its leader, Don Farrell, a veteran of Canada's energy and infrastructure sectors. Its structure, co-designed with an Indigenous Advisory Council, ensuring that reconciliation, partnership, and Indigenous economic participation are embedded in every major project from the outset. The Matawinie Mine is one of its first designated projects. This is not bureaucratic window dressing. This is institutional capacity building. For decades, Canada had abundant critical mineral resources and chronic difficulty converting those resources into operating mines. Regulatory uncertainty, Indigenous consultation failures, interjurisdictional friction, capital attraction challenges. The Major Projects Office is designed to solve these problems, not by bypassing environmental assessment or Indigenous consent, by providing coordination, clarity, and certainty. A single point of contact for federal approvals. Clear timelines, predictable processes, integrated engagement with Indigenous partners. This is the difference between aspiration and execution. And it is why Nouveau Monde Graphite is breaking ground in 2026, while comparable American projects remain stuck in permitting limbo. Canada built an institution to solve a strategic problem. America is still holding hearings. Now, let's talk about the competitive advantage that no other graphite jurisdiction can match. Quebec's electricity is 99.9% renewable, 94% hydroelectric, 5% wind, less than 1% fossil fuels. Graphite processing is energy intensive. Purification, spheronization, coating, all of it requires substantial electricity. In China, that electricity comes primarily from coal. The carbon footprint of Chinese graphite is enormous. The carbon footprint of Quebec graphite is negligible. This is not a niche environmental credential. This is a market access requirement. Europe's Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, CBAM, is already imposing tariffs on imported goods based on their embedded emissions. Major automotive manufacturers, Volkswagen, Mercedes, BMW, Volvo, have committed to net zero supply chains. They cannot meet those commitments with Chinese graphite. They can meet them with Quebec graphite. Eric Desaulniers understands this perfectly. He has positioned Nouveau Monde Graphite not just as a supplier, but as the supplier for Western automakers facing decarbonization deadlines. This is not about being greener. This is about being eligible. And in the emerging regulatory environment of the 2020s, ineligible products do not get purchased, regardless of price. Graphite is not just about electric vehicles, it is also about defense. Every modern weapon system, every fighter jet, every missile, every radar installation, every secure communications device depends on advanced polymers and thermoplastics. Graphite is a critical component of these materials. Without graphite, there are no F-35s. Without graphite, there are no guided missiles. Without graphite, there are no ballistic protection systems. Dominic LeBlanc, Canada's Minister of Public Safety, was explicit when the Matawinie Mine received its major project designation. This project is essential for defense and economic security. Not important, not valuable, essential. And here is the detail that should concentrate every American defense planner's attention. The United States currently imports virtually all of its defense-grade graphite from China. Not from Canada, not from Australia, not from Europe. From China. This is not a hypothetical vulnerability. This is an active supply chain risk that the Department of Defense has been trying to address for years, with limited success. Canada is now offering an alternative. Not a conceptual alternative, not a future possibility, a shovel-ready, financed, permitted, construction-scheduled alternative. Matawinie begins production in 2028. Bécancour begins processing shortly thereafter, and the Melville Belt may ultimately dwarf both of them. This is not just an economic development story. This is a national security story, and it is unfolding with remarkably little attention from Washington. Now let's look at the timeline. 2026, Matawinie construction begins. 2028, Matawinie production begins. 2028, Bécancour processing begins. 2028 to 2035, North American EV production scales from approximately 2 million units annually to over 10 million. 2028-2035, European CBAM tariffs on high-carbon imports reach full implementation. 2028-2035, Chinese domestic graphite demand continues to grow, reducing export availability. This is the convergence, not a single dramatic rupture. A gradual, cumulative, irreversible shift in the global graphite supply chain. And here is the question that no Chinese strategic planner wants to answer. What happens when Western battery manufacturers no longer need to buy Chinese graphite? Not because of tariffs, not because of sanctions, not because of political confrontation. Because a credible, scalable, cost-competitive, low-carbon alternative exists in Quebec. The answer is not immediate collapse. The Chinese graphite industry is enormous, sophisticated, and deeply embedded in global supply chains. But the monopoly is broken, and once a monopoly breaks, pricing power shifts. Contract terms shift, investment flows shift. The margin between only supplier and preferred supplier is the difference between extraordinary profits and ordinary returns. Canada just captured that margin. Let's step back and look at the pattern. Over the past 18 videos, we have documented a systematic, multi-sectoral Canadian strategy. Aluminum tariffs triggered diversification. Thor discovered 1/3 of world alumina supply. Potash tariffs triggered diversification. Global customers signed long-term contracts. Energy, LNG Canada ships gas to Asia. Trans Mountain expands. East-West transmission strengthens. Defense, F-35 review, Gripen proposal, EJ-230 engine eliminates American choke point. Infrastructure, 540 billion railway rescue request. Canada offers operational control. Bourbon, 85% export collapse. Canadian consumers discover domestic alternatives. And now, graphite, a complete domestic, low-carbon value chain from mine to battery. This is not a series of coincidences. This is a coherent, deliberate, strategic doctrine. It has several core principles. 1. Dependence is vulnerability. Every sector where Canada relied exclusively on American markets, American technology, or American approval became a point of leverage. That leverage was used, not hypothetically, but repeatedly. The response is systematic diversification. 2. Resources are only valuable if you control the value chain. Raw material exports capture only a fraction of economic rent. Processing, refining, and manufacturing capture the rest. Canada is no longer exporting raw graphite. It is exporting battery-ready anode material. 3. Green is not a marketing slogan. It is a competitive moat. Europe's carbon border adjustments are not going away. Automakers' net zero commitments are not going away. Investor ESG mandates are not going away. Low carbon production is not a premium feature. It is a license to operate. 4 institutions matter: the Major Projects Office, the Indigenous Advisory Council, the Strategic Innovation Fund, the Critical Minerals Strategy. These are not bureaucratic overhead. They are competitive advantages. They reduce uncertainty. They accelerate timelines. They attract capital. And they are producing results. There is a photograph that every Canadian critical minerals executive knows. It shows a Chinese graphite processing plant in Inner Mongolia, rows of purification furnaces, clouds of steam and smoke, workers in blue coveralls moving among industrial equipment. For 2 decades, that photograph represented the future. The future where every battery, every EV, every energy storage system depended on a single country's industrial capacity. That future is now contested. Not because China's capabilities have diminished, they haven't. Because Canada has built an alternative. In a small village in Quebec, a decade of patient investment is about to become an operating mine. In an industrial park in Bécancour, processing lines are being designed and permitted. In the remote Arctic, drill rigs are probing a mineral belt that may ultimately prove to be one of the largest graphite districts on Earth. And the institutions that enable all of this, the Major Projects Office, the Indigenous Partnerships, the Clean Electricity Advantage, are now operational. This is not a plan. This is not a strategy. This is reality. The graphite will be mined. It will be processed. It will be shipped to battery manufacturers in Canada, the United States, Europe, and Asia. And the Chinese monopoly, the most complete, most concentrated, most strategically vulnerable monopoly in the entire clean energy supply chain, will be broken. Not by tariffs, not by sanctions, not by political confrontation, by competition. By a smaller northern country that looked at a map of global critical minerals and asked a simple question: if we have the resources, the energy, the expertise, and the will, why should we depend on anyone else? Why not build it ourselves? Why not build it better? Why not build it greener? Why not build it now? Those questions have been answered. The black gold is Canadian, and the world is about to find out. What do you think? Can Canada scale its graphite production fast enough to meet Western battery demand? Or will Chinese dominance persist despite these developments? Will the Melville Belt prove to be a district-scale mineral province? Or will exploration results disappoint? And what does this mean for the Inflation Reduction Act's North American battery sourcing requirements? Let me know in the comments. If you want to track these critical minerals and geopolitical shifts before they become headlines, hit subscribe and ring the bell. We're watching the signals the rest of the world misses.